On February 18th, 2017, Swordburst 2 was released for early access, and to say the least, people seem to be actually enjoying it for the most part. Of course, this game was made in 2017, which means the game didn't really have any game-breaking mechanics. The game had combat, rare obtainable swords, accessories and cosmetics, a built-in sword skill system, and much, much more. It was inspired by the popular anime series Sword Art Online, SAO for short. The creator of this game, Abstract Alex, already got recognition from his last title, which is the prequel to Swordburst 2, known as Swordburst Online, the first game in the franchise. He wanted to make a new and improved version of the game, and thus he decided to create Swordburst 2. Alex is not the only developer helping with Swordburst 2. Along with Alex, there were 3 other people: Max, the scripter, Slevin, the builder, and Kevin, the model designer and animator. A team of 4 people managed to make a game that thousands of people enjoy, and is shocking to say the least. The game they made was pretty ambitious for a small Roblox game, especially back in 2017, and the fans loved it despite its overly simple concept and gameplay. This made it to where even casual players can enjoy the game despite how low quality the combat is. You can sit in a VC with friends or explore with random people you've met in the server. The gameplay loop was so addicting at the time, the game kept on growing and growing. Keep in mind at this point in time, the game was paid access, meaning you had to pay Robux in order to get in. This is after tickets were removed, by the way. People really wanted to buy the game while in beta because developers promised exclusive items that will no longer be attainable after beta. It seemed like an effective marketing strategy. As people hurried to buy the game as soon as possible, this growth would eventually carry through into its eventual free release in November of 2017. Even for the people who didn't get to play the beta, such as myself, were still hyped to play the game when it finally was for free. So the game was hyped up by the beta players and the fans of the previous title. When the game finally went free, the player count shot up. It caused it to get so much traction across the Roblox community that even YouTubers such as Twist and Bandor and IB Main started to make videos on the game. The game would be on the front page for quite some time, and sometimes it would shoot up in players to the front when updates would come out. The game continued to grow and shape into its next form. Throughout Swordburst 2's lifespan, the community has come to agree that there was a specific point in time in where Swordburst 2 was at its peak. Depending on the person, they might say that the first floor 4s were the best, or the game was only good in early access. But in reality, if you look at Swordburst 2 nowadays, the golden era was actually floor 1 all the way up to floor 8. During this time, the game kept on updating like normal, and the community was jam-packed together like a family. People traded swords, auras, accessories, and whatever else they can get their hands on from their new update. Some players loved trading in this game so much that they dedicated most of their time to it. This would later create the market which shows the prices of certain items in the game. There are still price lists to this day in Discord servers and the Swordburst 2 wiki. This is also when the first legendary sword was added to the game, which is the Sandura Soul, and the trading community went nuts for this and offered everything they had for it at the time. This would have caused the trading community to get a slightly negative reputation for being toxic, but it didn't matter in much in the end because it just became a meme more than anything. People also thought that the upgrading system for legendary swords was ridiculous. I mean, you literally had to dismantle 20 plus legendary only to have the chance to fully max it out. A lot of players disliked the system and stuck with the rare swords instead because they would never end up getting the swords in the first place. Eventually, Floor 6 came out, which is known as the infamous trading floor Helmfirth. There's a new shop where you could buy swords, and they would later add crystal floors to help players upgrade their legendaries. Next came Floor 7, which had another legendary, but people mainly stuck with Scarlet Katana because they couldn't get Durandal. Eventually, Floor 8 came out, and everyone loved the update. It was a nice, beautiful floor and had a really cool legendary along with the first legendary armor. These would be the Volley Kaze and the Dragon Skull Robe. They were highly sought out by traders and casual players because they looked cool. Everything seemed to be going well. The game kept on adding new amazing floors, swords, and music to the game. What could possibly go wrong? On April 22nd, 2018, Floor 9 Valrock was released, and to say the least, it was a disaster. Upon releasing this update, they released a vote-kicking flag system to prevent exploits from running wild. It ended up breaking during release, but people didn't seem to mind. There were already exploiters to begin with, so people were happy that they're going to see less exploiters around. Except, This, in fact, did the opposite of the developer's intention. Not only did this bring attention to Swordburst 2's anti-cheat, but it also inspired exploiters to push the limits of their software. Since hackers were running amok, it was hard for the average player to find a good server to grind in. By this point of the game, levels were a pain to get, and now they have to grind this new floor against OP mobs. For us, how bad it was, Batting Eyes, the first mob you'll encounter in floor 9, almost have 2 times the amount of HP than the first mob in floor 8, which is a giant praying mantis. This is a problem for 2 reasons. First off, the max gear you get from floor 8 doesn't double itself to scale properly, and secondly, the mobs do way more damage than they're supposed to. This update was not fun for the average casual player. It was so bad that players were not even able to grind the floor because they were still using the Home for shop items, which only goes up to level 67. It was especially bad for people using the shop items, specifically the armor. These armors were straight trash and they couldn't last a second in floor 9. As a result, a lot of casual players left the game due to the difficulty and unfairness of floor 9. The game lost a lot of players. Some of the remaining players would still continue to play normally or just start exploiting. On December 24, 2018, Abstract Owls released Floor 10, Transylvania, intending for it to be the last floor. When the update released, people were hyped to see what it was, but when the community finally got to explore the update and look at the mobs, they realized something. The developers were getting lazy, and they were risking tons of mobs. The update was hardly any good. This was a crappy way to end such an amazing game. The developers were so lazy and wanted to get the game over with that they made legendaries of this floor have a higher drop rate, so less people would complain. Tons of players will leave the game with a bad taste in their mouth because it was supposed to be the last and biggest update yet. But we got a glitchy, lazy, overly hyped update that barely lived up to the expectations. During this time, Abstract Owls would announce that there would be no more content and would bow out from the Swordburst 2 project along with Kevin. They would go on to start developing World Zero, which a lot of people would come to hate the game as it heavily marketed towards children to squeeze out money from the mom's credit card. Fans thought this was the end of Swordburst 2, and it shows in numbers. Slevin and Max would also step away from the game but momentarily come back. This would lead us into the next era of Swordburst 2. After about a year and a half later, Slevin would post his first leak for the new 4.11 update. People didn't expect this as most of the community left the game. By this time, all the SP2 YouTubers had left the game, but there was a new generation of YouTubers that came to make videos in the game. This group of YouTubers was led by Toxilo5 as he was one of the oldest content creators who made videos in the game back in the day. Following this movement, people like me, BGM Master, and Halo Pacific will start making more videos in the game because 4.11 was about to come out. This would actually bring a lot of people back into the community because they would get YouTube recommendations of the new 4.11 update, and the community was hyped to see it come out. A few months of tireless waiting, and we finally got the update. It's actually funny because Slevin was doing this for fun, yet he made an overall enjoyable update. It had good legendaries and 3 mini bosses that each drop unique legendaries. It was a nice update overall and well received, but there was a problem. All of the mobs were Russians, and I mean all of them. This was because Kevin had long left the game and Slevin and Max had to work with what they could. Regardless of that fact, people expected a better update and ended up harassing Slevin until he left the community. Now that Max was the only one left, and also not the person who planned the update, the community's in a situation where they didn't know if the 4.11 dungeon was going to come out or not. The 4.11 dungeon was not in 4.11 to begin with. People were angry despite the fact that they caused the builder to leave the team in the first place. However, despite all the doubt, the game had some community members that stepped up to help. The most notable being Epic Fishbowl. He excelled at building and mob designing and ended up becoming a contributor. A lot of the game's moderators also didn't want the game to die, so they would end up becoming contributors. Some notable names would be Atomic, BGM, Ash, and Matt. This gave the community a new hope. Epic Fishbowl thought the 4.11 map needed an update, so the team worked on it. It ended up taking 2 years and 2 weeks, but the update eventually came out, and we had a recovery of players. Obviously, the game is not as popular as it used to be, but it's better than the game being dead in the water. This video was to take a look back at the events that led up to Swordburst 2's current state. Recently, Abstract Owls made a Twitter post announcing the 3rd game of the franchise, and honestly, it's been an amazing ride. Seriously. We had a winter event, Easter event, a Halloween event, and an amazing update that revamped 4.11. As of now, after the second part of the Halloween event, I don't really know what is coming for the future for this game. but what I know for sure is that Swordburst 3 will revive the community and bring it back together. I am thankful for this community I built up, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the future. Thank you. But this video is getting too long for now, and I have to go for now. See ya.